as we all know at this point, everybody's seen the video of Joshua stomping the fuck out of a fish and smiling and laughing. If you haven't seen it, I have another video that I put up. You can, Google mine. Well, not Google, YouTube it. Look up the first part. There's my rundown on that. You can't see the video on my page. It was very graphic. You'll have to look it up yourself. You do you. Like I said, like it would be good if you watched the main video and read the description under the main video's thing. I go through all of it in mine. So basically, Joshua stomped the fuck out of this fish, splattered its guts, laughed about it. He enjoyed it a lot. And he is autistic, which is something that we need to keep in mind, because we can really only speculate as to why this behavior happened. Now, it's very possible, and I know a lot of people are speculating that there's a possibility. Well, factually, first and foremost, this isn't a behavior that's associated with being autistic. This isn't something that autistic people do. This isn't like, all right, so this is something that's independent on his own. That being said, we can only speculate on why he was doing it and why he was taking pleasure out of the particular situation. Like I was saying before, a lot of people in the comments were saying it's just a fish. And while I totally disagree, and I would focus more on the fact that he's getting joy out of like mutilating the body of a fish, which most people would find very graphic. To him, maybe because it is just a fish, maybe he just doesn't care. Maybe it has nothing to do with being some kind of a sociopath. And I tend to agree with that. Looking into it, I think that it's more of he was just having... I think he thought... looking at the video, it looked more like he was having fun. Not because he was killing a fish, but because he found it in the... he thought it was funny. Do you understand what that... I think that he thought that that was funny, and because he doesn't have any value on a fish, that was where it came from. And so I don't think that he's some kind of like a fucking terrible person. I don't think that he's somebody that likes to kill small animals. I think it's a mixture of he thought it would be funny for the person that met him, mixed with the fact that he doesn't have a particular value on the life of fish. And let's be honest, in society, we don't tend to have a very high value on the lives of fish, but the action is like very devoid of empathy and rather disturbing. But I do think that that is one of the things like autistic people tend to not have, or they tend to not necessarily understand. Well, they don't understand nuances generally, or have a deep understanding of empathy. That being said, let's look through the apologies he's made, the lives. I have a couple of shots from his lives, and I have a picture that he made. Let's get through this.
I sincerely apologize about stomping the fish.
So this is actually before I made my video, I think, or this was the first one he made, and he pulled it down very quickly. Sorry, let me replay that.
I sincerely apologize about stomping the fish. The fish was dead, but it was still wrong. Please forgive me. I'm sorry, it was a very terrible thing I did.
Right, so that's the first video. He ended up taking it down, probably because at the time it didn't have a whole lot of traction. Obviously, somebody asked me about it, and I responded, and then I picked up the traction.
So a lot of...
This is the next the apology he has from it.
Okay, so a lot of people are upset about a leaked video of me stomping on a fish. First of all, the fish was already dead. The person...
Now, I don't know that the fish was already dead. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I find it almost irrelevant, but it's very possible that he thought the fish was dead. I think it's almost an irrelevant point, though.
Who recorded me without my permission. They didn't pay the cameo, so they weren't even supposed to record me.
Now, I do find it a little hard to believe that he didn't notice somebody recording him. Maybe he didn't. I would imagine it's easy. Maybe they hid it somehow. I don't really know. But there's a heavy emphasis on how the video shouldn't have been leaked, rather than how it was wrong of him to actually make the video in the first place.
But they posted it to set me up, so that they would have an excuse to try and cancel me. I did not kill anything. The fish was already dead.
Right. Really quick. So I have people in my chat arguing with me. That's perfectly reasonable. You need to remove the timeout on that person. They're expressing their opinion on this topic. You don't time people out for that. Okay, so then this video, there's a heavy emphasis on that this should have never came out. There's an apology. There's an apology, and I know a lot of people find it to be insincere. Here's one of the situations here that I think is important for people to understand. I don't think that, honestly, based on the fact that he has autism, I don't think that he's ever going to truly understand I don't think he's going to truly understand the situation. I don't think he's ever going to truly understand it. A lot of times, I think people with autism, especially depending on how they're function, like how well they function, they're never going to understand the depth of particular topics. But he does understand that it was wrong based on the social backlash. Now, the point I'm making here is that like this would be insincere based on us because we have the capacity to understand things within depth. I don't think that Josh does. And so even if it's insincere by our standards, I think it's really the best case scenario is that now he knows that he shouldn't be doing things like that. And that's the desired impact. Right? That's the desired impact more than anything else. But like, I'm going to move on. Like, there's a couple people send me a few lives. There's a few lives here that people sent me. They wanted me to watch. We'll watch them.
Of killing the fish and posted it. Like, and I apologize for stepping on it at all. You know, I know it was wrong.
And like we said, by our standards, like, I don't think that he knows that it was wrong. But I think that he knows that based on the reaction, like, that's more important. That, like, people don't like it. I know that sounds so weird, but sometimes that's just the way things go.
I know it was wrong to step on a dead fish. But okay, why don't we move on? You know what I'm saying? Stop hating on me.
And right, like he's more focused on like, hey, let's move on, stop hating on me. Now, from most people's like general perspective, it would be like, oh, so you don't want to take accountability. I'd say from his perspective, it's difficult to deal with the social backlash, especially since this is something that's like easy to move through. Like Josh could just kind of like could take a couple like less than a week off, and then people would forget about this. I don't think it's you understand, but because he has autism, I think it's making it difficult for him to understand that, and which makes it difficult for people with autism to be in this sphere, right? Because in all honesty, like I don't think he's ever going to understand the full depth of the actions that he had, because it's not just about the fish; it's about the fact that it's about the action and the discomfort and the association with potentially being like some kind of a psychopath. But I don't think that he's any of those things. Does that make sense? And he's obviously more focused on like not feeling mentally stressed over a dead fish. And when you kind of reduce it and you remove a lot of the nuance out of it, it makes more sense. That's what we need to kind of focus on in Josh's case, right?
Stop trying to cancel me. Don't unfollow, don't block, don't.
And like, let's be absolutely honest here. If you like, and this is really advice to Josh. If people are unfollowing you over this situation, they aren't fans that necessarily matter, right? And I'm just being honest with you. There are, when it comes to situations, like this is like not a good thing, but this isn't the worst thing. And so there's a lot of people who follow people, especially on TikTok, who follow them for, it could be one video. Them not following you anymore doesn't really mean anything. Your core base is still going to be there. And they're probably going to follow you back after a month anyway. Because these people have very low tolerance for things. So they have very low like social tolerance for mistakes. Which means that they also have like they have a high forgiveness factor. Because they're not thinking about anything in a critical matter. So it's like, oh, uncomfortable, unfollowed. A month later, Josh is a meme again. Oh, I like this. I'm going to refollow. It really is as simple as that. My progress as a content creator, I went up like over the course of like, I don't know, 8 or 9, 10 months. I don't even know. But I went up to like 1.4 million or 1.5 mil. Then I dropped to 1.4 mil. And then I surged to 1.8 mil. Then I dropped down again. And then I'm up to 2.3 mil. Shit happens. And like people aren't always going to understand all the mistakes that you make. And that doesn't really matter in the long run. You know, you're better off just taking time, decompressing, and not worrying about it. Because, like, of all the TikTok drama or things that are going on, this is not, like, one of the bigger things. In the sense of, like, moving on. I mean, you have, like, tons of sexual assault allegations, which are, like, internally damaging. So I wouldn't super stress about this, honestly.
Leave hate comments. Don't do any of that shit. Let's just move on.
And I also want to address like the hate comments, because a comment is negative doesn't necessarily mean it's like hateful. A lot of the comments are like, bro, this is really uncomfortable and disturbing. And while we can understand that Josh has autism, and so like it gives him an understanding to like of his actions, it doesn't mean that it's like socially palatable for people. And honestly, I truly don't think that Josh would really shift away from that type of behavior without this type of an understanding. Right. So, for instance, my girlfriend works. She's a behavioral specialist, and she has a particular person where like they hit a lot. They hit people a lot, and what they'll do is they'll like run up to somebody and they'll go to hit them and they'll stop and say like, no, bad, and then they'll give them a hug. Right. Now that person doesn't understand that you shouldn't hit, or they don't understand why they shouldn't hit, because they don't have the empathy to understand it. But they know that they need to not hit. And I think that that's one of these situations. And like that's our best case scenario. I'm just trying to reinforce that progress to Josh is independent from progress from other people. The action stopping is more serious than him understanding why the action needs to be stopped.
I'm very sorry. Okay? Think twice before you try to cancel me, because there's gonna be no more New York City vlogs if I end up getting canceled, because I'm the only channel that does this.
And I know that comes off as a bit conceited, you know, and it is a little bit conceited. But again, like it's not something that I would really focus on. You know, I think that he just has like a lot of stress associated with him feeling like he's going to get canceled, and he's really just worried. He's just appealing to people to not like, you know, run away from him because of this thing happened.
You shouldn't have even watched my shit if you're not a real fan. Why did you even watch my shit? It's weird. This happened to me back at 900K. This time I'm actually canceled for a reason. When I was at 900K and I lost a ton of followers, I didn't know what was going on. But still, it's a stupid reason. It's a stupid reason.
And that's one of the things, like, he's saying it's a stupid reason. Like, so from his perspective, he really doesn't care about the fish, which, again, I think it just comes down to, from, like, our perspective as people that are neurotypical, or I guess I'm not fully neurotypical, but you understand the point. We look at a fish in a very low sphere, right? Like, we have more empathy for cows than we do fish. So fundamentally, like, we all devalue fish. And so when you look at it from the value of the thing that of what he did, as far as the value of the fish, like, it's not a big deal. When you look at it from the perspective of like the way that he engaged with attacking the fish, that's the problem. And that's not something that he, like, I don't think that that's something he's going to understand. Right? That's the thing that I'm trying to express from you guys. That's the thing that he's not going to... I don't think that he's going to understand that, like, that's a behavior that's, like, really, like, just completely devoid of, like, empathy.
I am the...
Yeah. And lastly, this is a picture here on, like, the video. I think this is the video I made. He said, what the fuck, I apologize, I'm still getting canceled. Like I said, he doesn't fully understand. Now, here's what I want to leave off with, and it's just going to be a reinforcement of these things. Josh does have autism. That means that his interactions with the world are going to be different. What he did was a bad thing. He shouldn't have done it in the first place. And he needs to understand the implications of his actions. So, to end off with this, here's kind of what I want to say. His interactions with things are different than other people's. I don't think that this is something that people need to hold on to. I also don't think he's ever going to understand the depth of what he did being wrong. Like, I don't think he's ever going to understand. I don't think that that comes from a place where, like, he's going to be some kind of, like, a crazy serial killer. I think it just comes from a place where he focuses on the fact that the fish has a very low value in society, and not an understanding of the way that he interacted with that fish. That's what people are focused on. And that's why he's never, like, truly going to understand. At the end of the day, you guys should still follow him. You guys can still enjoy his content. He's not a bad person for this. He's not going to go out and fucking strangle a cat to death. Right? We also have to keep, and I brought this up in the first video that I had made and then I put up on YouTube, is that he very well may have thought that fish was dead, even if it was or wasn't. And then also, those people could have encouraged him to do a particular thing. Now, we don't know. Based on what they said in the description, he was just... He took the fish and he kind of just went off on his own. They were like, oh, we wanted to give him the fish and take a picture of it, whatever. That might be true too. But then that gets down to like Josh probably just thought it was like a funny thing to do. Right? Like just like doing what he did was funny, not killing the fish. It's a little bit difficult to fully explain. So yeah, now it could be, somebody said it's a sign of other mental issues. It could be. None of us are fucking mental health professionals here. Which is why I said that he should see a therapist for these interactions, right? Because maybe it is, or maybe it really just isn't. Maybe he just doesn't like it. Or excuse me, maybe he just doesn't, like, understand. Like, it could be, like, a deep, serious thing, but it's more likely that it's just, like, a lack of understanding. I think people should give him a break with, especially, you know, I've seen very few posts, but there's one that was, like, a little bit too violent. I reported it. I hopefully it got taken down. Those are the types of things we need to avoid. This is like, you know, I'm always about re-education culture. So, you know, does he have anyone to rely on? I'm not entirely sure. I really just don't know. Hey everyone, if you liked that video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to follow my Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, Discord, and TikTok. All links are in the description. Also, check out my Patreon if you'd like to support me even more than you already do. Thank you so much, everyone. I love you all.